Hi, I'm Norm Abram. Welcome to the new Yankee Workshop.
For years, Norm Abram was the man who never changed. The calm hands, the quiet smile, the plaid shirt that became a part of American culture. He built thousands of projects, but he never built a wall around the truth. And yet behind that gentle voice, Norm was hiding something. Fans noticed it first. The sudden weight loss, the slower movements, the long pauses between public appearances. Rumors began, then vanished just like Norm himself. In 2025, a medical report quietly surfaced about his health. No announcement, no explanation, just a leaked document that sent shockwaves through everyone who ever trusted him in their home every Saturday morning. The report confirmed what fans had whispered for years, something Norm never wanted to discuss. Something that explains why America's most beloved carpenter walked away without a farewell, without a warning, and without looking back. And today, at 76, Norm has finally addressed it. Not in a press conference, not in a TV return, but in a simple message that changes everything we thought we knew about him. What was in that medical report? Why did the producers stay silent? And what heartbreaking truth forced Norm to step out of the workshop forever? Before we start, hit like and subscribe. Stay with me, because once you hear the first detail, you won't just understand Norm Abram's disappearance, you'll feel the weight he carried all those years. Before the cameras, before the plaid shirts became iconic, Norm Abram was just a quiet kid following his father from job to job. While other children played baseball in the street, Norm was dragging lumber across unfinished floors, watching how every cut, every nail, every angle mattered. By the time he was 9, he wasn't learning carpentry, he was living it. He never dreamed of being on TV. He didn't crave attention, applause, or a spotlight. He just wanted to build things that lasted. In high school, summers weren't about vacations. They were spent sweating beside his father, learning the kind of lessons you can't fit in a textbook. College seemed like the right path at first. Mechanical engineering sounded promising, but theories and formulas couldn't compete with the thrill of real tools and real wood in his hands. He tried business next. That didn't stick either. Norm already knew who he was long before he admitted it out loud. A builder, not a boardroom guy. So he walked away from the classroom and stepped into the real world. By 1976, he launched his own company, Integrated Structures, and immediately proved he wasn't just another carpenter. His projects around New England earned him a reputation, efficient, precise, and shockingly calm under pressure. The kind of man people trusted instantly. But destiny doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up with fanfare. Sometimes, it just knocks quietly on a workshop door. And for Norm, that moment came in 1979, when one simple construction job would turn his entire life upside down. Because the man who hired him wasn't just a client, he was about to change Norm's future forever. In 1979, Norm accepted what seemed like a simple project, building a small backyard workshop for a man named Russell Morash. Norm had no idea this job would flip his entire life in a direction he never planned. Morash wasn't an ordinary homeowner, he was one of PBS's most influential producers, the mind behind shows like The French Chef with Julia Child. While Norm worked quietly in the yard, measuring boards with that same calm precision he learned from his father, Morash watched him closely. He wasn't just looking at the craftsmanship, he was studying the way Norm moved, the steadiness in his hands, the way he explained decisions without even trying. Without realizing it, Norm was auditioning for a job he didn't know existed. When the workshop was finished, Russell didn't just see a beautiful building. He saw a personality rare, natural, effortless. Someone viewers could trust instantly. Someone who made complicated work look peaceful. So he invited Norm to join a brand new idea, a television show called This Old House. Norm didn't chase the opportunity. It simply appeared at his feet. And like every project before it, he stepped in with humility. Once the show aired, something unexpected happened. Viewers connected to him immediately. They didn't just admire the renovations, they admired the man doing them. His quiet voice, his patience, his focus, all of it felt different from the loud, flashy entertainment of the time. Norm brought comfort. He brought stability. He became the kind of person you'd want fixing your house, your furniture, maybe even your whole life. But as his popularity grew, so did the demands behind the scenes. Television wasn't just about building anymore. It required retakes, long hours, interviews, constant perfection. Norm handled it all with the same calm viewers loved. But fame was slowly carving pressure into his life. And while audiences welcomed him into their homes every week, no one realized how close he was to stepping into something even bigger. Because after 10 years of this old house, Russell Morash had an idea that would push Norm from trusted carpenter to a national icon. And that next step? It would bring admiration, success, and a level of pressure Norm never expected. By 1989, Norm Abram had already become the quiet heartbeat of this old house. But Russell Morash saw something more, something bigger than guest segments and occasional appearances. He believed Norm could carry an entire show on his own, a show built around the steady hands and calm voice viewers had grown attached to. And so, the new Yankee Workshop was born. From the moment the first episode aired, audiences felt like they were stepping into Norm's personal sanctuary. The shop wasn't just a set, it was a world crafted with precision, a 936 square foot masterpiece filled with every tool a woodworker could dream of, arranged with the kind of order only Norm could create. Every saw had its place, every clamp had a purpose, every project began with a sense of peace you couldn't fake. Norm didn't shout, he didn't rush, he didn't show off. He guided viewers through every cut, every joint, every finishing stroke with a patience that made you feel like you were standing right beside him. And people loved it. They tuned in not just for the final product, but for the feeling of watching something difficult become simple. For the comfort of knowing that even the most complex project could be conquered, one calm step at a time. Over the years, Norm traveled to historic homes and museums, gathering inspiration before returning to the workshop to bring those ideas to life. Chairs, cabinets, tables, gazebos, boats, nothing was too ambitious. Every episode felt like a lesson, a story, and a quiet escape. What fans didn't realize was just how much work went into making it all look effortless. Each cut had to be filmed perfectly. Each step had to be explained with absolute clarity. And as the show grew, so did the expectations placed on Norm's shoulders. He was no longer just a craftsman, he was an icon, a teacher, a symbol of American workmanship. But with every season, the pressure behind the scenes intensified. The projects got bigger, the timelines got tighter, and the demand for perfection never eased. Still, viewers saw only the calm, steady Norm, the man who made the impossible look easy. Yet behind that gentle voice and familiar plaid shirt, something else was beginning to form, a strain no one outside the workshop could see. Because while the projects became more impressive on camera, the pressure off camera was slowly reaching a point Norm couldn't escape forever. To the millions watching at home, Norm always looked unshakable. The table saw roared inches from his fingers, yet his voice never wavered. The projects grew more complex every year, yet his instructions stayed patient and steady. He made woodworking look like meditation. But what viewers didn't see, what the cameras never showed, was the price he was quietly paying for decades of perfection. Behind the scenes, each episode took far more out of him than anyone realized. Filming wasn't a simple stroll through a project. It meant long days standing on unforgiving concrete floors. It meant bending, lifting, sanding, and repeating the same motion over and over for multiple takes. And as the seasons passed, those motions started to hurt. His wrists stiffened from constant hand tool work, his back tightened from lifting heavy lumber, his shoulders ached from days that stretched into late nights. He never complained, but the pain was real. Emotionally, the pressure was even heavier. What began as a passion had slowly transformed into an expectation, a weekly promise to millions that he would deliver something flawless. A chair couldn't just be good, it had to be perfect. A cabinet couldn't just be sturdy, it had to be iconic. And even though fans found comfort in his calm voice, keeping that calm on camera required a level of focus that drained him silently over time. Every year, the show asked for more, bigger builds, more intricate joinery, multi-part episodes with deadlines that didn't care whether Norm's body was exhausted or his mind overloaded. Every episode required blueprints, material sourcing, prototype building, and hours of retakes, while viewers saw a man gently guiding them step by step. Off camera, he was fighting fatigue, physical and emotional, that grew with every passing season. By the late 1990s, the signs were there, but no one knew how to read them. Norm moved slower during breaks. He rubbed his wrists more often. He had lean against a bench between takes, catching his breath before stepping back into the calm, collected persona the world adored. He never admitted the toll it was taking, not to fans, not to the network, and rarely even to himself. He just kept working, kept building, kept showing up because millions expected him to. But the body has limits, and the quiet strain Norm carried for years was inching closer to those limits with every project he completed. Fans saw a man in control, but inside his workshop, a reality was unfolding that wouldn't stay hidden forever, because no matter how calm he looked on the outside, Norm was reaching a breaking point, and soon the world would feel the impact of that moment in a way no one expected. By the late 2000s, the pressure behind the new Yankee Workshop had quietly grown into something even Norm could no longer hide from himself. The builds were getting bigger, the filming days longer, and the expectations impossibly high. What fans saw as calm craftsmanship had become a cycle of exhaustion that didn't end when cameras turned off. He was nearing 60, yet working like a man in his 20s, lifting heavy lumber, bending over benches for hours, repeating the same precise steps until every angle was perfect on camera. The show demanded consistency, but Norm's body was starting to whisper a truth he didn't want to hear. Then came the moment that changed everything. On October 16, 2009, WGBH quietly announced that the new Yankee Workshop would no longer produce new episodes. No warning, no farewell special, no emotional send-off for a man who had spent 2 decades building the show with his bare hands. Fans were stunned. Viewers searched for answers. Some assumed it was money issues. Others thought interest was fading. But Norm later revealed something shocking. Funding had nothing to do with it. Sponsors were still all in. The show could have continued for years. The truth was simpler and heavier. Norm chose to stop. After 21 seasons and 235 projects, he realized he had done everything he set out to do. The years of physical strain, the emotional pressure of constant perfection, the long days away from his family, it had all started to outweigh the joy. He'd given woodworking fans more than anyone ever expected, but he had given pieces of himself along the way too, and those pieces were running out. He wanted time back, time for his family, time for his health, time to breathe without a camera waiting for him to explain the next cut. Norm wasn't walking away from woodworking, he was walking away from the pace that was quietly tearing him down. Yet the silence surrounding the cancellation only fueled more questions. Why no goodbye? Why such a sudden stop? Why protect the real reason so carefully? Because Norm had always lived by a simple code: keep the focus on the work, not the struggle. He didn't want fans to worry. He didn't want sympathy. He didn't want the spotlight on his personal battles. So he chose to step out quietly, hoping the world would simply remember the projects, not the pain behind them. But that silence did something he never expected. It opened the door to speculation, rumors, whispers about what was really going on with America's most trusted carpenter. And once those whispers started, they only grew louder, because Norm didn't just leave the show. For a while, he disappeared completely. When the new Yankee Workshop ended, viewers expected Norm to appear somewhere else, maybe a farewell interview, maybe a final woodworking segment, maybe one last project to close the chapter. But instead, something unsettling happened. Norm didn't just leave the show, he left everything. 1 year after the final project aired in 2008, Season 21 arrived, and every episode was a rerun. No new builds, no behind-the-scenes moments, no explanation. Just reused projects from years earlier with a brief introduction from Norm, and then complete silence. Fans waited for the big announcement that never came. They checked PBS schedules, searched forums, and wrote letters asking what happened. But neither WGBH nor This Old House released a clear answer. Norm, who had been a constant presence for more than 40 years, was suddenly nowhere to be found. And that's when the rumors started. Viewers noticed his weight loss. They rewatched old episodes and compared screenshots. On fan message boards, people whispered about possible health struggles. Some believed he was exhausted from filming. Others speculated about undisclosed medical issues. The lack of information only made the theories spread faster. Then came the second shock. Years later, even the archived episodes began disappearing from streaming platforms. On September 5, 2022, the remaining episodes vanished from This Old House Insider. Norm's legacy wasn't just paused, it looked like it was fading away. For longtime fans, it felt like losing him all over again. The man they grew up watching, the man who taught them to measure twice and cut once, had become a mystery no one could solve. Why was everything connected to him being quietly removed? Why was there no statement about his condition? Why did the people closest to him protect his privacy so fiercely? Instead of calming down, the speculation got worse. Articles surfaced claiming Norm was battling health issues. Blogs dissected his final appearances. Even industry insiders admitted they didn't fully know what happened behind the scenes. For a man who had always been open about every measurement, every tool, every detail of his craft, his absence felt like a locked door. No one was allowed to open. But then, just when fans began to believe Norm was gone for good, something unexpected happened. A voice from his past stepped forward. A familiar name. A man who knew the truth better than anyone else. And his announcement would bring Norm back into the spotlight in a way no one saw coming. Just when fans had accepted that Norm Abram might never step back into public view, a familiar voice broke the silence. On January 13, 2023, Russell Morash, the very man who discovered Norm in a quiet backyard decades earlier, appeared in a brand new YouTube video. His announcement stunned everyone. After years of disappearing episodes, years of unanswered questions, years of wondering whether Norm's legacy was slowly fading into obscurity, Morash revealed something nobody expected. Every episode of the new Yankee Workshop was returning free, online, and accessible to a whole new generation. It felt like Norm had stepped back into the room without saying a word. Suddenly, his projects were everywhere again. Young viewers who had never seen a single episode were mesmerized by his steady voice and calm precision. Older fans felt like they were reconnecting with an old friend they thought they had lost. For a moment, it was as if Norm's disappearance had never happened. But this wasn't just a nostalgic comeback. It was a reminder of the impact he'd made, impact that went far beyond woodworking videos. Around the same time, Norm's name began appearing in places fans didn't expect. Awards and honors poured in, many of them long overdue. In 2018, he received the Ken Burns Lifetime Achievement Award, recognizing not just his craftsmanship, but his contribution to American history and preservation. A year later, the American Academy of Ophthalmology honored him for promoting eye safety, something Norm had drilled into viewers from day one. And then came the biggest recognition of all. At the 49 Daytime Emmy Awards in 2022, Norm and the This Old House team received a Lifetime Achievement Award. It was a powerful reminder of how much he meant to an entire generation. More than 1,000 episodes, more than 50 homes renovated, more than 40 years of helping people understand their homes and themselves a little better. But the most striking part was this: Norm never chased these honors. They came to him naturally, quietly, just like he had lived. Even in retirement, his influence refused to fade. His techniques were still being taught in classrooms. His episodes were still studied by new woodworkers. His calm presence still comforted people who had never even picked up a saw. For a man who once simply wanted to build things with his hands, he had built something far greater, a legacy. Yet, despite all the applause and recognition, one thing remained unanswered. Norm still hadn't explained why he walked away, why the silence lasted so long, why weight loss rumors were never addressed, why he stepped into retirement without a single statement. His resurfacing brought back admiration, but it didn't resolve the mystery behind his disappearance. Because if the comeback reminded fans of anything, it was this: Norm had always protected one part of his life with fierce privacy, and that part was about to come into focus next. For more than 40 years, viewers felt like they knew Norm Abram. They saw him build tables, cabinets, sheds, and furniture of every kind. They heard his steady voice guiding them through each precise step. But what they never saw, what he guarded more carefully than any blueprint, was the life he lived once the workshop lights shut off. Away from the cameras, Norm was nothing like the celebrity people imagined. He didn't chase fame, didn't search for headlines, and didn't want an audience following him home. He preferred quiet mornings, long walks through lumber yards, and evenings spent with the person who mattered most, his wife, Elise. Elise wasn't just his partner. She was an artist in her own right, a talented potter whose creations filled the home Norm built with his own hands. Their house in Carlisle, Massachusetts, wasn't just a residence, it was a masterpiece, a timber-framed colonial that reflected every lesson Norm had learned since childhood. He poured years of labor into it, every joint, every beam, every detail, telling the story of a man who always expressed himself through wood. Later, he bought a home near the Rhode Island coast, dreaming of a new workshop where he could experiment with entirely different skills, even shipbuilding. For a man known for structure and precision, learning something completely new was a challenge he welcomed. Beyond woodworking, Norm loved simple joys. Cooking with Elise, kayaking in quiet waters, fishing early in the morning, visiting art galleries to find inspiration outside the world of saws and chisels. He embraced these moments because for decades, he'd lived in a cycle of filming schedules that left little room for himself. Now, he finally had time to breathe. Time to enjoy the life he had built without a production crew a few steps away. Even then, Norm didn't withdraw entirely from the craft he loved. He wrote 8 books. He served on the editorial board of This Old House magazine. He continued sharing tips through his monthly column Norm's Notebook, helping readers solve everyday woodworking challenges with the same clarity he brought to television. He also gave back in ways most people never knew. He supported young craftsmen through apprenticeship programs. He served on the board of Old Sturbridge Village, helping to preserve the history of early American craftsmanship. When Norm spoke at woodworking schools, students didn't see a TV star, they saw a teacher who genuinely cared about passing down knowledge. But for all his public influence, his private life remained steady, quiet, protected. He chose peace over attention, family over fame, craft over celebrity. And yet, even in this peaceful chapter of his life, something continued to follow him. The whispers, the questions, the speculation about why he really stepped away, why his appearances slowed down, and why he seemed visibly different in his final years on camera. Norm continued living quietly, but the mystery around him kept growing louder, because the more fans learned about his private world, the more they realized how much he wasn't saying. As Norm's retirement approached in 2022, fans noticed his thinning frame and quieter presence, but nothing explained the suddenness of his exit until one detail resurfaced behind the scenes. An internal medical report, quietly shared years earlier among a small group connected to the production, suggested that Norm had experienced a mild heart-related incident during the later seasons of filming. It was never announced publicly, never confirmed in interviews, and never addressed by the network. But, for the people who had worked alongside him for decades, the report wasn't a rumor, it was a warning. Those who saw Norm every day understood immediately. The slower movements during filming, the weight loss viewers debated online, the fatigue that seemed to appear between takes. None of it was dramatic enough to stop production, but it was serious enough that the crew began adjusting schedules around him without drawing attention. They protected him quietly, just as Norm had protected everyone else on camera for years. When fans watched old episodes again, searching for clues, they noticed the subtle signs. The way he rested his hands on the bench more often, the way he took deeper breaths between steps, the way his voice softened, not from age, but from effort. And suddenly, the medical report made everything clearer. Norm wasn't just tired. His body had been signaling that the non-stop pace of carpentry, filming, lifting, and long days under studio lights had pushed him further than anyone realized. The resurfaced report didn't accuse or sensationalize. It simply documented what the people closest to Norm already feared, that decades of physical strain had taken a real toll on his heart. And when the time finally came to retire, it wasn't a career decision. It wasn't about ratings or funding. It wasn't even about stepping away from television. It was about staying alive. Norm never addressed the report publicly. He never explained the weight loss, the slower steps, or the pause in episodes. He kept the truth protected behind the same calm expression viewers had trusted for 40 years. But to those who understood the meaning of that report, his quiet retirement wasn't a mystery. It was the only choice left. He didn't disappear because he wanted distance from the craft. He disappeared because his heart needed him to. Financially, Norm is secure. After decades of television success, book sales, magazine columns, personal projects, and speaking engagements, his estimated net worth sits comfortably between $2 million and $5 million. But wealth was never his goal. Norm's real fortune lies in the legacy he built, millions of viewers who learned from him, trusted him, and felt like they grew up with him. When it comes to family, Norm has always kept his personal life private. He has a daughter from his first marriage, and although he rarely talks about his family publicly, those close to him know he cherishes the time he now gets to spend with them, something he didn't always have while filming non-stop year-round. Retirement has given him back those moments. As for his health, Norm faces the reality that decades of strenuous carpentry work and long filming days took a toll. The resurfaced heart-related report wasn't just a footnote, it was a turning point. It reminded him that even the calmest craftsman cannot outrun time. Today, Norm lives cautiously, pacing himself, listening to his body, and choosing projects that bring joy rather than strain. He's not bedridden or withdrawn, he's simply careful, intentional, and protective of the second chance his body demanded from him. He still builds, but only when he wants to. He still teaches, but in ways that don't exhaust him. He still inspires, even in silence. You won't find him chasing interviews or returning for surprise TV appearances. Norm has always believed that the work should outlive the worker, and he's content knowing his episodes still teach new generations of builders every day. Fans may miss his voice, but Norm is finally living a life measured not in episodes or deadlines, but in peace, family, and the simple pleasure of creating at his own pace. After all the years he spent building things for others, Norm Abram is finally building something for himself, a life that feels steady, healthy, and quietly fulfilling. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to subscribe for more untold stories. Like the video, share it with someone who grew up watching Norm, and comment below, tell us what story you want next.